Robert Henderson has an incredibly brilliant mind, but is Siren Head really the creepiest thing kicking around out there? I think Househead, Zalgo, and a couple of SCPs would beg to differ. Let me know what you think in the comments, and let's see if I can convince you of what I think. So for starters, Househead, or Domus capitis, if considered a species, is a spider-like creature that is a monstrous cousin of Siren Head and lives underground with its head sticking out. Look, we had to keep it in the family for a little bit. Househeads tend to travel in herds at midnight, but at every 3 a.m. That's when they wait for their first victim to come, which means the creature is kinda hostile and aggressive, and they're mainly that way to humans, domestic animals, and smaller or weaker beings, but they can get more aggressive to any kind of bigger being if provoked, threatened, or attacked, which rarely happens. Now when Househead is awake, they release a loud ringing, which almost sounds like bell ringer, mimicking voices from victims, ambient noise, and so on. Sometimes it's gonna make a sound that sounds kind of identical to your friends. Like, hey dude, come here. Granted, when they're asleep, they mostly emit just sort of like a weird bit of noise. Although the most notable and unique noise it can generate is an actual spider's voice. Now, when mimicking a human, a distinctive distortion in the voices is always present, due to the sounds being played through the sirens instead of vocal cords or other organic means of creating noise. Kind of like Siren Head. But at the end of the day, all of this combined, a spider making noise at 3 a.m.? I'm running. Alright, probably the most mainstream of H.P. Lovecraft's creations, Cthulhu resembles a green octopus slash dragon slash human caricature who is hundreds of meters tall with webbed human-looking arms and legs and wings. Now its head is depicted as similar to the entirety of a gigantic octopus, with an unknown number of tentacles surrounding its supposed mouth. So for scale, if you want to know how big these things are, this is supposed to be bigger than your average dinosaur. Dinosaurs used to be like 9 to 12 meters tall, and Cthulhu is supposed to be bigger. He is one of the great old ones, an old race of deities that are comparable to cosmic beings and demons in the other works of fantasy. Now the first short story that mentions Cthulhu, which is The Call of Cthulhu, was published in Weird Tales in 1928 and established the character as a malevolent entity, hibernating within an underwater city in the South Pacific. The imprisoned Cthulhu is the source of constant subconscious anxiety for all mankind, and also the object of worship, both by many human cults and by other Lovecraftian monsters known as the Deep Ones. His worshippers chant. They're waiting. He's waiting and dreaming, praying that the currently trapped and missing Cthulhu will eventually return. Now, while not considered as powerful as many other great old ones, and being dwarfed in scale by the outer gods that he serves, I don't know, he's terrifying to me. Being near godlike to humans, he's immortal, he has great strength, and can endure great amounts of damage. He can only be killed by a near omnipotent power. Using his wings, he's also capable of true flight. He possesses vast intelligence and awareness, because he knows all that is occurring in the universe at once, and has great psychic abilities. Oh right, he can communicate telepathically. His most notable trait is the fact that he, alongside the rest of his kin, cannot be comprehended by humans. Like when you look at him, you're gonna be driven mad. Oh, almost forgot. Cthulhu was also able to create a city out of nowhere. No big. Zalgo is an entity that corrupts webcomics so that they are dark, warped, twisted versions of themselves. Now they're commonly associated with madness, death, destruction, fear, and the end of the world as we know it. Being an entity living in another dimensional plane, in that when it appears in ours creates chaos, its mere presence is capable of taking a person towards the vortex of madness. Simply put, Zalgo is horror. No matter how much you search in the internet, you'll never find a clear answer about what Zalgo is. Because there's no such thing. Because Zalgo is something so terrible. There are no words to describe it. He cannot be stopped, just as fear cannot be stopped. It is inseparable from reality, because it exists beyond the veil, waiting. He is an eyeless abomination with 7 mouths. In his right hand he holds a dead star, and in his left hand he holds the candle, whose light is shadow. Seriously, just creepifying. Don't Google too much, folks. That's what happens. Don't go beyond page 8. SCP-610, or the Flesh That Hates, who shall be dubbed Flesh today, is honestly just terrifying visually to look at. Initial reports of this creature came directly from the Russian government through undisclosable channels, and consisted primarily of disappearances of farmers in the region, and were not considered until the local police, followed by the regional police, and finally a government dispatched agent, all failed to report in within a 72-hour period. Because that's not terrifying at all. A military contingent was dispatched to the area and quickly withdrew, and that's when the Foundation kicked in, and that's how we got our SCP file. So this creature appears to be a contagious skin disease at first, with symptoms including a rash, itching, increased skin sensitivity, and within 3 hours the disease will cause blemishes, resembling heavy scar tissue, and that's going to form on your chest, on your arms, spreading to the legs and back within an additional hour, consuming the victim completely within about 5 hours, so you don't have long. Exposure to higher temperatures vastly decreases the time for the contagion to spread, and complete infections have been recorded as occurring in as little as 5 minutes. So sometimes they don't have any time. After the completion of the infection occurs, the victim's life functions will cease for approximately 3 minutes, and after that they restart at about 2 to 3 times the activity rate of a normal human. After that, the scar tissue is going to start to move of its own accord and grow at a rapid rate. Normal human features start to disappear, and the path of mutation appears to be kind of random. Subjects observed in this stage of infection have been recorded as growing 3 or more limbs. We're talking like arms or legs. The head might misshapen and elongate or widen out, and parts of the subject might split open, from which additional branches of flesh are gonna grow. Now, the duration of this stage of the infection is kind of unknown, and not all subjects appear to progress to the later stages. Under unknown conditions, an infected individual will cease moving and place itself in a location it deems suitable, and that's where it roots itself. By that, well, the fleshy growth on the victim will then begin to spread itself across all surrounding objects and consume them. Such objects do not spread the infection as living creatures do, but the effect of prolonged contact with these objects, well, it's not great. It is assumed that this behavior is to create an area that is kind of hospitable to the continued growth of other infected. Now, if you wanted to observe this, kind of impossible. Those infected past the scar tissue phase actively and aggressively attempt to infect anybody else approaching them. It's been established that should an infected be capable of sight and observe an uninfected, they're making a beeline. Now, if you've lost the ability of sight, stay at least 30 meters away. Observation of infected settlements has been established using drone technology, and the data returned from these observations, coupled with the openly aggressive nature of the infected to attempt to spread this awfulness, has resulted in a really bad classification. So, cool. If you don't go near it, it's technically neutralized. But then, of course, you've got the settlements. You've got the, really big caverns they tend to hang out in. And it's really bad. Even just talking about this, I'm a little terrified. Just burn it. Burn it all. So finally for today, we've got this creature that emerged from the Abandoned by Disney creepypasta, and if you're not terrified by the end of this recounting, you're stronger than I am. Imagine, if you will, a deserted paradise called Treasure Island, nestled in the Bahamas. Now Disney, in all its grandeur, crafted this resort only to abandon it later, leaving like $30 million worth of dreams to wither away. They pointed fingers at the shallow waters, the allegedly lazy workers, but the real story runs deeper than the ocean surrounding the island. Now let me draw your attention to another ambitious project, Mowgli's Palace in North Carolina, a jungle-themed resort inspired by the Jungle Book. Now Disney kinda had some opposition. People were like, I don't know if that's appropriate. So, the clash between all this scenery and amazingness and a really bad opinion from the public kinda reached a boiling point. Houses were condemned. The media's tone was like, and the palace never came to be. So, fast forward, we've got this urban explorer. They're like, I wanna know what's going on here. They've got their curiosity, they've got an old map, they're ready to go. Well, and then you've got the remnants of Mowgli's palace, wrapped in overgrown foliage, whispered tales of a bygone era. And as the intrepid explorer stepped through the colossal wooden gates, now weathered and etched with the proclamation, abandoned by Disney, we've got our story. The interior of the palace revealed a surreal landscape of broken structures, a grinning Baloo statue, and the scent of decay. It was a canvas where chaos and order were just kind of there. And what do you know? Our explorer's journey took an unexpected turn when a lifelike python, once a decorative piece, slithered away, a remnant of Disney's release of exotic animals upon closure. Delving deeper into the mascots-only area, well, that's where the things take a turn for the worse. A sub-basement untouched by vandals held the relics of a bygone Disney era. Clocks frozen in time, notepads waiting for doodles, and a punching clock marking the ghosts of mascots' working hours. But the true revelation awaited behind a black and yellow striped door labeled Character Prep 1. An eerie darkness enveloped the room until with an almost supernatural force, the lights flickered to life. Costumes hung like macabre art, frozen in a state of decay, and an uncanny Mickey Mouse lay on the floor. A negative image. Something quite bizarre. As our explorer focused their camera on this grotesque scene, the Mickey Mouse costume defied logic. It rose, uttered perverse greetings that I can't say, and began a disturbing display, tearing at its own head, fluids flowing like a surreal river. Oh, but this wasn't just any regular fluid release. No. The fluid pouring from this Mickey Mouse was a curdled yellow, instead of the red you'd expect to see. So at this point, our explorer flees the scene, and sees a haunting message scratched into the door, proclaiming abandoned by God. Seriously, isn't that not terrifying? Well, that's it for me once again, folks. I've been Alexa, your resident ooky spooky girly. See y'all next time, you lovely spooky people.